Oh, what a rock star Matt Wasmund is. Look at that. It is an old picture.
Yes, it is.
So, do I count this still as Jackson? Is this still Jackson,
Yes.
Minnesota?
Yes, Minnesota.
Minnesota. This would be the Doc, as you have become known over the years.
Yes.
Thank you for your service, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Tell me in a minute about this guy, but why do I have a late model in front of me when you are a sprint car guy?
Well, our Wasmund racing actually started off in the fender and late model world.
Ah.
So that it was only after he quit late models and we tried fishing for about 3 weeks when he quit driving late models.
Fishing?
Yeah, and we were on the banks of Indian Lake and we're sitting there fishing. The fish weren't biting. He looks at me and goes, "This sucks. Let's go buy a race car." And I said, "Finally." So he goes, the only thing he hadn't driven at that point was a sprint car, so that's what we went and bought.
So, like, when did you first start racing, and why did you start racing?
Well, even as a kid, I used to go to the county fair and just loved to go to the races. Back in them days, it was the old modifieds, you know. But then I actually started racing in 1974 when I got out of the military.
Thank
I
you
spent
for your
4 years in the
service.
Air Force, and I come
Yep.
home and I said, I got to race. So that's what happened, 1974.
Wow. Wow, that's 50 years ago.
It is.
I just did the maths real quick just then. Holy cow. So what did you race predominantly and where?
Back in them days, it was stock cars. Everybody built their own stock cars. There was very few rules, and it was actually kind of fun. And then it progressed. Stock cars turned into late models, and the sprint cars were just kind of evolving. But I stuck with stock cars and late models for quite a few years, and I drove for a lot of nice people. My first 10, 15 years of racing, I just drove for other people, and it was fun, had a good time, but I learned something in that process. My last people that I drove late model for, I drove for them for 4 years. It was a big trucking company, and good relationship, still relationship today, but I learned one thing that I'd like to tell a lot of young drivers: don't be too unsure about your comfort in that seat, because the last night I drove for those folks, I won the heat and I won the trophy dash and I won the feature, and the next day I got fired. So don't be too comfortable in that seat, because and that's when I made the decision, and Matt talking about the fishing thing, sitting on the lake, the only way I'm ever going to get fired from a ride again is to buy my own. So that's what happened.
So has he ever fired you?
No, not a couple times he got mad at me, but never fired me. But that was when I was going through school. That was always like, if you don't get good grades and you don't do what you're supposed to, the race car's gone. So, which was always a good motivation.
Yeah, absolutely. So did you race sprint cars right from the start then?
I did. I started. I think I raced, and he was always believed that if you wanted something, you had to work for it. So, like, I wanted to race a go-kart, and he goes, "Well, you got to figure out how you're going to buy one." So I had to raise cattle and all kinds of stuff for 3 years to buy a go-kart. And when he decided that he was running sprint cars, and when business got busy enough for him, he didn't want to take a chance with getting hurt in a sprint car. I jumped into it, and he told me, he says, "We got one spare front wheel, we got 2 spare rear wheels, and we ain't got no spare axle. So you bend it, you're done." So you had to be very careful when he first started.
Well, that's a great, you were teaching him stuff there, right?
Yeah, you know, yeah. Well, when you're a family organization and you're operating on a limited budget, and if you want to go next week, you got to watch your P's and Q's. And you know, over the years, I've seen a lot of young folks that just smash it and crash it. And I told Matt, if you want to continue racing, we can't be that way. And so that's just how it all evolved.
And I think that taught you respect, and it taught you responsibility for...
It did. I know when I...
Because you see kids jump into a car now with no budget already and just go for it, right?
Well, they do, and I think a lot of that is they don't have any fear, which is good because they've never been hurt, and the cars nowadays are so much safer. The seats are so much better.
Yeah.
When I first started racing, the seats went up to your middle of your back, and you had a head cushion behind you, and there was no full containment seats. There was no Hans device. When you crashed, it hurt, and which is good nowadays because I remember the first time I tipped over in a full containment seat at Knoxville, and Dad goes, "Are you okay?" And I said, "Dad, that didn't even hurt." It's not like the old days when you'd bounce around in the car, but yeah, things have changed since then.
How much does the chiropractic industry give into sprint car racing? Do you deal with many drivers and that sort of stuff, or?
I do. I get text message. In fact, I got a text message from Knoxville. "Are you here?" Somebody was asking if I was down there so they could be treated. I've treated several of the drivers. So I
think Brian Brown was asking about something like that, and a few people. So you're probably not allowed to tell me because there's celebrities and stuff involved. But
HIPAA.
you got sick as well, completely through mold. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah. I ended up with sarcoidosis from mold. It settled in my joints and my lungs, and I lost about 20% of my lung volume. Wow. And it was no fault of my own. I just got sick, couldn't figure out what caused it, and come to find out it was actually mold.
Wow.
So,
that kind of stopped you from racing for a little bit, didn't it?
About 4 years.
Did you go fishing?
No, we did not try fishing. It was in 2018. We raced at Jackson like twice, and I come in after a heat race, and I told Dad, I said, "I can't do it." I said, "I can't breathe." And before that, we had tried to load up and go to Houston's one night, and I come out of the house, and we were all loaded up, ready to leave. Had the semi loaded and the trailer loaded, and I was puking, and I couldn't breathe, and I told Dad, I said, "I can't go." I said, "I can't breathe." I said, I said, "I'm not going to put anybody in danger or me." So we decided not to, and we raced twice that year, and I said, "I can't breathe." So that was the end of that. So we took off from 18 to I think 2021. Okay. 4 years until I could get healed up.
How young are you now, sir?
I like that compliment. Thank you. 73.
Okay. So it wasn't that long ago that this thing came into your life. Can you want to explain to me this little story? You got a phone. You called up your boy. You're having a late life crisis.
Yeah, I was having one of them moments where you start thinking about where life's going to take you, and I wanted to race one more time. And Karen and I were driving back from the VA hospital in Sioux Falls, and I told her, I said, Karen, I says, I want to drive one more time, and a late model. And so I called up Matt when I got home, and I says, "Matt, I want to drive one more time." And he says, "Sprint car?" And I said, "No, late model." And I honestly thought.
So you were 71.
Yeah, I would. Yes, yeah, about that age.
So when he called you up, your first thought was not, "Don't be crazy, Dad.
No,
what are you doing?"
said,
your first thought was, "Okay, which sprint car?"
Yes, I said, "But it's 3 in the shop. Which one do you want?" He goes, "I don't want a sprint car. I want to run a late model." And I said, "Well, where do you want to run?" And he told me where he wanted to race. He wanted to race up in Madison, Minnesota, because that's where he used to do a lot of racing. And so I said, "Okay." And he goes, "Find me a car." And I said, so I think I called him back 2 or 3 days later. He said, "Grab your checkbook. We're going to Kentucky." I said, "You bought a late model motor and trailer." So then kind of the rest, that's how this ended up here.
First night back in the car?
I was scared as hell, I'll be honest with you. It'd been 35 years since I'd been in one, and I knew in the bottom of my heart that these late models now are totally different from what I used to drive, but I thought that's what it is. And
yep.
So we went to Madison, Minnesota, and I hadn't had any laps, and I said to Matt, and we were in the pits getting ready to go out, and I said, go find out when the hot laps are. And Matt goes to the pit meeting, he comes back, and he said, well, Dad, you're in the first heat race. And I said, well, yeah, but when's hot laps? He says, Dad, they don't have hot laps here. So that was my introduction after 30
Not ideal. So you started down the back.
I started in the back. I started 8th, and I got 7th. I finished the whole race, which I was proud of. And then in the feature, there was 20 cars. I started 20th, and I got 18th. So I finished. That was my main goal.
What was it like to be back behind the wheel?
It was well, it's just like every driver that drives a race car, and I don't care which kind of race car driver it is. When you check your tear-offs and you tighten the belts, it's a feeling that most people never understand, but it was great, you know.
So how many other times did he run that car?
He ran it a couple times. He had a good time.
Literally a couple.
Yeah, he did well. He did very well with it. So I was very proud of him. I was very happy.
And we now still have this car in the shop.
Yes.
Have you ever driven it?
I have. I drove it once. It was completely different than a sprint
Yeah.
car. It was fun, but it was completely different. It was, instead of leaning on the left, it goes on the right, and you go in the corner, it
Yeah.
dives on the nose, and yeah, it was fun. I had a good time, but yeah, it's not something I want to do on a regular basis.
Matt, you've often said to me that you'll drive sprint cars as long as he's still
Yes.
around doing it with you. That's your thing, right? That when
Yes.
he's not, that's when you'll pull the pin?
Yep.
Why is that?
Gives us something to do. So he's been a big part of my life for so many years that when he's done, I'm done.
Yeah. You guys have a great bond. Like, it's cool that you get to do this with him. Obviously, it makes you pretty emotional even talking about it. And that's what I love about our sport. He's a bit of a softie, your kid. You're the tough guy, right? He's the softie.
Oh, I wouldn't want to mess with him.
Yeah, I know what you mean. He's pretty imposing, but he's a teddy bear.
Yeah.
I'm just not going to tell his rivals that. Why do you love this so much?
The racing?
Yeah.
It's a good question. It's one of the, it's always been fun and it's always been a family thing. But one thing that I've caught myself doing the last few years is when I'm sitting there in the pits and getting the cars ready, I love to see a mom and dad with a son or a daughter or walking through the pits, because then I know there's hope for the racing thing, because too many things in today's world are just disappearing. But I when I'm sitting on that chair getting ready to go on a race, I see a father and a mother and a son and a daughter, and I'm thinking, well, there's hope.
Yeah. Because your wife's hiding around the corner here at the moment. This is a very big family deal for you guys, isn't it? It's not just you two.
No, In fact, when I was going through chiropractic school, he wanted to quit at one time. Mom says, the hell you are. He says, that's the only reason he's going to school. So we didn't quit.
She didn't want you hanging around too much at home. That's what that was all
she didn't
about.
want me to go fishing again.
Nobody needs that.
No. Besides, we suck at fishing.
Well,
we ain't very good at it.
fishing sucks anyway. What do you love about this, Matt? Why are you still doing this?
I enjoy the speed. I enjoy working on them. I enjoy driving them yet. We haven't been out that much this year between weather and work.
Yeah.
Work always comes first. So it always, it's just him and I do it like during the weekly stuff. We have a lot of guys that help us on the weekends, but during the weekly stuff, it takes me about 2 weeks to get ready, because I'm kind of particular. I don't want to go off half-assed, basically, because I want to have everything right when we do go.
You've got a great relationship with Kaiser Wheels.
Yes.
In particular. Tell me how that came about.
Well, that came about back in 2001. I wrote them a letter because I saw a little ad they had in Open Wheel magazine, and I wrote them a letter, and I went down and met with Wade and Wes, and it was all done on a handshake.
Yeah.
They said, Wes goes, well, this is what we can do for you. And I said, works for me. It was a handshake, and after that, and it's just kind of grown from there. And it's probably more of a friendship. Wade's treated us like family, so they're all more family than a sponsor, I guess you'd say at this point.
They're not bad, those Wade guys, mate.
What's that?
They're not bad, those Wade guys.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Some
they're
of them
good
are a
guys.
little.
They're good.
Some of
They're
them are a
good.
little rough.
That name has some merit to it.
Maybe.
Yeah.
So rather than sell it all up, when you get to that point one day where you don't, would you stay on as a team owner or something like that? Would you put a kid in the car?
I've talked about it. We've talked about it. Yeah, that's something I enjoy racing. I want to stay involved with it because, like you say, I don't like fishing. I enjoy doing other things. But the racing I enjoy it. I enjoy working on building cars. Like having nice stuff. So I wouldn't mind doing that someday. It's kind of like his late model. He wanted to sell it at one point, and then I put it up for sale, and just called him one day. I said, Dad, let's just keep it. It's the last car you drove. I said,
Yeah.
It doesn't owe us nothing. Let's just put it in the corner and keep it forever.
So I got an idea. You know what my ideas are like? So what I think we should do is we should get a racetrack somewhere and put both of you guys on the track and let you lap side by side and let me get a picture of that.
Got one somewhere.
Do you now?
Once in a sprint car.
Yeah, in the sprint
did.
car,
We
But what about the sprint car and the late model together?
We have never done that.
I'd crash it.
Perfect. Perfect. As long as I get the picture, that's all that matters. Competitive much? But that would be pretty cool if we could, there's a track only a few minutes. How far is Jackson from here, the raceway, the Motorplex?
About 6-7 miles, not very
Yeah,
far.
right. So, I'm just putting it out there. That would be a fun thing.
Yep.
I do love the passion that he has for this sport, and I love watching what you guys do together, and that's what we talked about. Why I do what I do is because of guys like you, and we became friends randomly a couple of years ago at the Knoxville Nationals.
Yes, yep.
And I love the fact that in our sport you can become friends with people for life, and it's not like you and I could become friends with CJ Stroud all of a sudden or Patrick Mahomes. Like we just suddenly decided to support their team and thought I might become friends with that guy. In our game, you can become friends with your heroes, right?
Yep.
So it's about the people. These things are cool, but they're not as cool as people.
Amen.
Good to see you guys.
It's good seeing you.
It's been a pleasure.